You're listening to the Travis Makes Money podcast presented by GoHighLevel.com. For a free 30-day trial of the best all-in-one digital marketing software tool on the planet, just go to GoHighLevel.com/Travis. What's going on, money makers? Welcome back to the Travis Makes Money podcast, where it's our mission to help you make more money. If you're new to the show, we release brand new conversations just like this one with unconventional money makers 7 days a week. So if you have not yet, please be sure to go to your podcast app of choice, hit that subscribe or follow button so you never miss out on an opportunity to learn how to make some more cash. Today on the show, we're going to be talking about multifamily real estate, among other topics, I'm sure, with my new friend, Bronson Hill. Bronson is the managing member of Bronson Equity, a general partner in 2,500 multifamily units worth over $250 million. As host of the Mailbox Money Show, he's raised over $45 million for real estate and private equity deals. He authored the best-selling book, Fire Yourself, and leads the Wealth Forum, a mastermind for affluent passive investors. A sought-after speaker, Bronson has been featured on podcasts like The Best Ever Show and spoken at major events like the Limitless Conference with Ken McElroy. He regularly contributes to YouTube and his blog, sharing insights on investing and financial freedom. Bronson, what's up, man? Welcome to the show.
Travis, really excited to be here, man. Let's talk about money. Let's talk about making money.
Let's do it, bro. Let's go back in time first and tell me how you made your first dollar ever.
First dollar ever. Well, I don't know if it really counts. I did chores around the house for allowance stuff, but really my first job was I was 14 years old and I started doing paper routes in Seattle, Washington, where I grew up. My older brother had been doing paper routes. He saved up enough money to buy. He paid $4,000 and he bought himself his own first car.
Wow.
So we didn't have a lot of money growing up, but I was like, you had this car. It was like amazing. So I was like, wow, I'm going to do this too. So that's how I first got started.
$4,000 delivering newspapers had to be quite a long time to save that up.
Took him 2 or 3 years, yeah, and he was very dedicated. And then he got his car, and I wanted to do the same, so I did. I didn't save 4,000, saved a little less than that, but it was a great experience to develop responsibility and learn and be able to. I look back now, and I'm like, you had to be out there every single day, come rain or shine. And we had some pretty cold, rainy, ugly days out there after school, during the weekdays, in the mornings, on the weekends. There were times I'd be up till 1 a.m. roller skating with my friends in middle school. And then I'd be out there at 6 a.m. delivering newspapers, right? But I had to do it. So you just do it. And then, yeah, it was a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody told you this, Bronson, but Seattle rains a lot. You picked a bad climate to deliver newspapers.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But, I guess you can talk about when you're a kid. I used to deliver newspapers uphill both ways, barefoot in the snow. Exactly. Tell my daughter that.
That's really the reason that you were doing it. It had nothing to do with money. Yeah. It was just an eternal excuse that you could tell your kids.
Yeah, exactly.
How difficult it was to make money back then. Yeah.
that's all.
All right. Now tell me how you made your most recent dollar.
Most recent dollar. That's a good question. I get, from what we do now, I mean, I've raised about $50 million for different real estate and other private equity deals. That sounds crazy to think about, but, I was a medical sales guy for years and did that. And I just kept saying, if I had my own thing, I'd love to do something that involved real estate or involved, just creating more value. And so that journey of, making money while you sleep, as Warren Buffett says, as I quote, unless you learn how to make money while you sleep, you work until you die. So now we have investments that just operate. And so I think probably it was from an oil and gas deal we did recently, and getting, thousands of dollars from that every quarter is great, right? So there's things that are like that just produce the passive income.
You mentioned you were in medical sales before. How long did you do that for?
Yeah, I was in medical sales for 10 years. I enjoyed it, except I was making good money. I was making about 250,000 a year toward the end, and enjoyed it. I just didn't like that I had to be there, like that I didn't have control over my time. I couldn't travel. I had 2 physicians I worked really close with that were making over $3 million a year each, but they work 60 to 80 hours a week every week, and it was a lot of pressure. And I thought, to me, it doesn't feel like financial freedom, right? We use that word financial, this word's financial freedom, but freedom to me is really freedom of time, right? So you have the money so that you can do the thing, so that you can live out your values, so you can spend the time with family, so that you can give to the cause that you believe in. And that's really, for me, a lot of people think passive income is owning a rental house or having an online business or actively trading stocks, but that's not passive income, right? That's creating another job for yourself, really. It's maybe a very side hustle or creating another job. So it's how can you actually generate passive income? And that's become my passion to figure that out.
Yeah, for sure. And ultimately, at the end of the day, passive income is more or less a myth. I think for most people, there's no such thing as truly passive income. Even you have Mailbox Money now, and you run a show called the Mailbox Money Show. But it also required you to learn a lot about what you do in order to eventually get to the point where it can become passive. Like there's not really a lot of scenarios where you're just like, here's money, let me know how it goes. And even if you can do that, you still have to do the work to make sure you're putting your money with the right person in the right deal, or that they know what they're talking about. And you have to be able to speak the language and communicate with these people so that you can make a proper decision instead of just writing a check to whoever and watching it go dwindle away.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's there's a process to it, right? And a lot of people, a lot of times we think, and it really comes down to this. There's a book out called Who Not How.
Yeah.
And what it says is basically that a lot of times we'll have a problem. We'll say, well, how can I solve this problem? And it's really the wrong question. Is the better question is who can solve this for me? And so people that are very wealthy, people very successful, they're constantly asking the who question, right? And so the goal, even with passive investing, is like, hey, I want to make this money, but who can do this for me? Or I want to get involved in this thing in my business, or I want to have meals prepared for me at my house, or I want to do this certain thing or plan a vacation. Well, not how can I do it, it's who can do this for me, right? And a lot of times, the more value you can create in your business or in your life or whatever, if having other who's that can help do it for you is incredibly, it's a great skill to be able to have, to just be able to identify that.
What was the transition like for you moving away from full time medical sales to what you're doing now? Was there a transition period? Did you have to put money in the bank? Were you already learning about real estate? What was that like?
So honestly, I think for a lot of people, they can relate to this. My family, nobody's an entrepreneur. Everybody's like, works in education, which is like the anti-entrepreneur, right? You work for the government, you work for education. So I have like, I mean, literally my dad and my mom are both teachers. My sister's a teacher. My aunt and uncle are both teachers. My grandmother was a teacher. Like everybody's
Wow,
a teacher, right?
that's crazy.
Everybody, and nobody's an entrepreneur. I have like one cousin that's like a distant cousin that was an entrepreneur. Nobody else is an entrepreneur. So I had this year, I had this 200K a year job or more. And I'm like, I want to leave my job to go do real estate. And they're all like, oh my gosh, time out. Like, let's have an intervention. I mean, they were just like freaking out.
No
Like,
kidding. Well,
would you ever
200,
leave your
200
great
grand a
job?
year to a family of teachers is like
Yeah.
wealthy.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. It becomes the golden handcuffs. And so
Right.
it's just good enough. And a lot of people I'm sure can relate. The job, the W-2 is just good enough to not have to leave. And so the problem is all the growth happens on the other side of when you actually make a decision. So for me, I was going to leave before COVID. I had enough income coming in. I was making more money in my real estate. I kind of dialed it back. And for me, it was a mindset shift where I said I was a top sales rep. I was selling, the top 10%. And then I had to say, I'm going to go from being this rock star employee to be like a mediocre employee. Right? So it's hard if you're an achiever. That's hard. It's a hard conversation with yourself, right? To say like, oh, okay, I'm okay because my brighter future is over here. So instead of working 40, 50 hours a week, I was like, I'm going to work 20, 30 hours a week. And I'm just trying to do the best I can. I'm going to build over here. And so I did that. And I started making more money over here on the other side. I was probably working 30 hours a week in real estate. And so I was hustling for a while, but I knew it was going to be for a while. And then what really helped me, what helped me, Travis, was I got in this group of entrepreneurs. It was called Entrepreneurs Organization. And we had a group of people we met with every single month. And I just, besides my family and friends, I shared, because they're all like, you're crazy. Why would you ever leave? These guys were all like, they listened to how my business worked, how I made money. And every single one of them said, oh yeah, you should leave your job as soon as possible. But if it doesn't work out, you could always go back to medical sales. And it was just like a frame of mind. I just didn't even think of that as an option. Like, oh, I
Yeah.
guess I could always go back. And so I was actually sitting right at this table that I'm at right now, and at my desk, and this is 2 months after I left my job. So I found this is about almost 4 years ago now. And I was sitting here, I was remembering the end of, anybody's been in sales can relate with this, of having the quota at the end of the quarter, and your manager, if you have a manager calling, hey, how's it going over here? How many widgets are you going to sell? And just what came out of my mouth as I was thinking about this was, thank God I'm not doing that job anymore. Right. So I've been really glad I left. It's great to have money coming in constantly, but then it also helps you to be creative and figure out how else you can make money in your business.
What were you doing in real estate to make that type of money while you were still working your job?
Yeah, so what I did is I started raising capital, and so I started a meetup locally in LA. Found my first investor there. He invested 100,000 in a deal that I was involved with. The first 100,000. That's the hardest part, just getting one deal going. And then I just kept trying to kind of network and work on deals and stuff. And stuff wasn't really going the next 6 months. But I went to a networking event, or it was an expensive investor event on a cruise, actually, ironically. And I met with a guy. I actually asked him to say, hey, can we meet up? And so we met at the Martini Bar, on this cruise. And I just said, hey, you're helping people to raise money, but like, how's it going for you raising money? What if I came on board, or someone like me came on board to help do this? And it led to this partnership. And then together, while working my full-time job, I took 1,000 one-on-one phone calls over the next 18 months. So literally like 6 a.m., lunchtime, in the car on the way back from a medical procedure that I'm assisting with. I'd take a Tuesday off and stack 10 or 20 calls that day. So I just kind of did whatever I could. But we raised $1 million together. I'm sorry, we raised $15 million together, and I probably made over $1 million just on that one connection, right? And that got me like that was my rocket ship that got me from like I'm ready to do this to now I'm actually doing it, right? I'm actually comfortable in doing this.
Were you automatically going into these multifamily deals, or were you starting off single family or something else?
I had a single family portfolio, and so I had four single family houses. But what I realized is that a lot of people think, "Hey, I want to be financially free. I should do real estate," which is good. But then we think, "Oh, I should buy a house or buy another house." But really, what it was creating another job for me, and it wasn't. A lot of times, especially these days, it's very hard to find cash flow. In real estate in general, but especially in single family, if you can find anything at cash flow, it's usually not that much. And then if you have one tenant that doesn't pay, you have a vacancy risk. You've got to, if somebody you have something, the furnace needs to be replaced, all your expenses or basically any profit you had is gone for the next 2 years, and so you've got to think about that. Versus these larger deals, it's all kind of calculated in. It's much more efficient, and they typically cash flow much better and have better management as well.
So you moved pretty quickly in that direction then.
Yeah, so I had 4 units, and then people think too. Again, from the single family world, are you a real estate investor also?
I've dabble.
Dabble,
And
yeah.
my dad was a realtor since I was like 3. So I
Right.
grew up going to caravans and open houses and walking
Yeah,
property
yeah.
and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, see, yeah. So a lot of times, what we think is if somebody's a single family investor, for me, it was just me, and I had a property manager and I had an agent, right? I had people buy, it was very small. Maybe I had a mechanic or somebody can kind of come in and help fix things or something like that. And so it was a very, very lean team. Now with multifamily, our first one that we did was 225 units. And they think like, oh my gosh, people's eyes just bug out. How in the world could you go from doing single family to 225? Well, the great thing about larger deals is that it's team, right? So I didn't have experience in managing a 225 unit, but my partner had been doing this for 15 years, had a track record, all this, and there were multiple people on the team. I was supposed to trying to bring more money, I only brought 100,000, but other people brought money as well. So we all contributed into it. It's very rare that somebody buys a large property by themselves, and that's where team can be really valuable. So again, just because I don't have the experience doesn't mean the team doesn't have the experience. So that's the amazing part. If somebody's trying to figure out how to do this, usually they get kind of into buying larger buildings like this one of two ways. Either you are a finder where you're good at finding deals and you bring that to a group and you get cut into the deal that way, or you figure out a way to raise money. I didn't realize at the time sales and all the sales background is just totally parallel to raising money. So for some reason, just didn't connect. I was like, I'm going to find a deal. I'm going to find it. And then finally, I was like, oh, I can raise money. And then it worked way better. So sometimes too, if you want to do something, you commit to it and you just figure out a way to kind of keep moving toward that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So where did the content come into play? You have the book Fire Yourself. You have another book now. You have the Mailbox Money Show. You're doing some speaking. Where did all that come into, like, your vision for what you wanted to do with your life?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I realized this guy that I was partnered with, when I first kind of got into multifamily shortly afterwards, he was just great at content. He was great at putting together things, and I'm fielding these calls, and it was like, some weeks 15 to 25 calls a week that I'm handling, and I'm thinking like, bro, how do you get all these people just calling you? He would run some ads, he'd do different things, whatever. But he found a way to really add value in the conversation around investing. And so the amazing thing is, if somebody is looking to raise capital, because again, you need two things to get deals done. You need the deal and you need the money. Those are only two things you need, right? I mean, you need other things, other details, but those are the primary things, right? If you have the deal and you have the money, you can find a way to get it done. So for me, it was like with the capital, it's like, well, it's been said people have to know, like, and trust you before they'll work with you. You've heard that, right? A lot of people have heard that know, like, and trust. And I ask people which one of those is the most important, right? Know, like, or trust. Most people will say, like, what would you say if I asked you that? Know, like, or trust?
I would, assuming though this is the answer that you're wanting, I would say trust.
Yeah, most people would say trust. Correct. Yeah, most people would say they have to trust me, and the answer, it's true. People don't work with people they trust. But the real, and I think I heard someone else speaking about this, and they said that actually the most important one is no. Like 99.9% of people don't even know who you are, or if they know who you are, they know you as some other thing. Like for me, it was medical sales, Bronson, right? I wasn't real estate, so I had to kind of tell a different story about who I was, and also try to meet people where they're at. So I started putting out emails, putting out content, putting out things and like a lot of stuff totally flopped. And I was really nervous about doing it. Honestly, I was like, man, what if it sucks? Like like people, my mentor who's not in, doing online stuff like this, I kind of set out a video and he was just like, oh man, he's like, he was kind of like, it really wasn't good, and but I realized like, I'm gonna get that's version one, and I'm gonna get better as I do it. And over time, I keep getting better and I keep trying different things. And one of the things in our business that's been super helpful is we do these monthly webinars. We bring in 3 or 4 experts and I moderate. So we talk on real estate, we talk about inflation, we talk about different things. And a lot of times these other experts will invite their people as well. So then I get spotlighted as an expert and they'll be like, I know this guy, but I don't know you, right? So I think some of that is just, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. People also perceive you as being like, who are your peers, right? So the people you hang out with, right? When you start posting things like that. So I saw what some of these people did, and I realized like, man, if I could just get around them, if I could create things, and also I could just really, find something. What's the avatar? You have your avatar, the person who's listening, who's saying, I want to hustle, I want to make some money. How do I do this, Travis? And so what who that person is. Maybe they're mid-30s, they're mostly guys, whatever they're, and you'll try. Well, what's the question that they're asking? If you can touch on that, then your stuff will blow up, right? And so that's the stuff we try to do for our audience, to just say, well, how can we help people that are wealthy but just trying to figure this whole passive investing game out?
How did you find the book writing process? Talk to me about Fire Yourself. And your second book is escaping me. What was the second book?
Yeah, it's called Rich Brain. Yeah, Rich Brain.
Rich Brain. Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you find the book writing process compared to all the other kind of content outputs that you have?
Yeah, so writing a book, I mean, you can pay somebody to write a book for you. If I think for 10 grand, they'll write a 150-page book for you or something. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, I just felt like there's a lot of nuance to what we're doing, and I wanted to have something I'm really proud of. And now, Fire Yourself's become an Amazon #1 bestseller. We think we've got 1,300 reviews, and we've I mean 1,100 reviews. We've sold about 2,000 copies, and it's been
Nice.
great. It's been a lot of fun. But I think that book writing, it's a child. It's like birthing a child. It's a lot of work. It's a lot. Don't tell it to your wife or a woman, but
Yeah.
it's birthing a child. I'm sure it's harder, but it feels like it. It's like a baby. I mean, it literally is. It was about a solid year worth of work. I would set a timer. First of all, I committed. I went to a Tony Robbins event and said, I'm going to write a book. And so what I did is I set a timer for 60 minutes. I had an outline. I set a timer for 60 minutes and do that 5 days a week. And within a couple of months, I had most of the book done. So I literally had most of the book written. And then it took me a while to kind of figure out, how I'm going to organize it and what are the
Sure.
lead magnets that people can get free downloads and things like that. How can I grow the business? But I mean, now I'd say, half of my business comes in through new business, or new leads come in through my book, right? It's just such
Wow.
a big lead from people saying, hey, I read your book and I learned about, it's really designed for the person who has wealth, who's only done stocks and bonds, and is like, well, how do I get started in this? And why should I consider it? And what's the first step, 1, 2, 3? So it gets into that. And I was an investment advisor for a couple of years also as a side hustle that I realized it wasn't really for me. And so then I left to do this. And but yeah, writing it is really helpful to help like clarify what it is you want to say.
Sure.
But it's not. I wouldn't say it's an easy process, but it's definitely doable.
Yeah. I hope more people take the path that you took rather than the let AI or ghostwriters write all of it for me. Because of that exact thing that you just said. I think that if you take the time to write things, you're forced to think through them in a more intricate way than just like talking about it or throwing an idea into AI and having it generate things for you. Like you have to think through problems a different way. You have to come up with ways to think about it, structures to think about it. And I think the content, the material ends up being that much better, which speaks to the results that you're getting from the book. Because a lot of people publish books and a lot of people are Amazon bestsellers with their
Yeah.
books. But not a lot of people get people to actually read their book
Yeah.
and see lead flow and cash generated as a result of it.
Yeah, and I think it's like it really comes down to the things that, I'm a big AI user as well, but I think that, it's the stories, it's the experiences, it's the life on life stuff. I mean, you get all the principles anywhere, but somebody actually shares, hey, here's how I quit my job, or here's how I did it. There's transformation in that, right? So I think that this book, Rich Brain, the subtitle is How the Wealthy Change Their Brain to Change Their Bank Account. After 2,500 interviews with millionaires, there's a lot of nuggets in there around mindsets that millionaires have. A lot of people think that you're either born with money or you're not. But the facts are, I mean, it's 86% of millionaires are self-made, right? So
Mm.
it means they did not inherit it, right? So that means these are learnable skills that we can figure out how to change our mindset and really change our actions to get there.
What are a couple of the things that people can start with right now is listening to this show? Obviously, the goal for everybody listening to this show is to figure out ways to make more money, but a lot of it starts in the mind. So what are a couple of those things that rich people do differently?
Yeah, so this was really surprising. I'd say a bit shocking to me, just because I think when it comes to the personal development world, there's a lot of kind of woo woo. People get kind of like a little, I don't know, talking to yourself in a mirror or having these
Mhm.
like, what does this even mean? Or having goals, or like people think it's kind of weird. And I think only like 3% of Americans have written goals. Almost everybody that I talk to that's worth over $10 million has, and I've talked to quite a few, have some sort of personal development mindset, growth work they're doing. They read a ton. There's all these things that they do because they're working on getting better. They're continually improving themselves. And one of the biggest things that I found, there's this element called wealth worthiness. And this is really interesting, and I never really heard anybody talk about this in terms of wealth. But I believe it's almost like what I feel worthy of is what I get in my life.
Mm.
And so, let's say, if I make $100,000 a year, and I've seen this, people they'll find a way to make about $100,000 a year, or the person that's making 1 million a year, they'll find a way to make $1 million a year. It's like a thermometer or something that keeps people at a certain level. And so, people typically, what will happen, they'll either stay at that level, or they'll regress or whatever, or they'll very gradually go up over time. So, for example, you have $100,000 job, and then all of a sudden you have a $150,000 job, then you work up to 200, and you keep kind of working your way up. But there's ways where people go dramatically in a very short amount of time. People go from this to this. And so I saw that in my life. I did a 20x of my net worth to a multiple seven-figure net worth in just 4 years, right? Well, how did that happen? Right? It happened because of the mindset work and believing that I was worthy of it. So this also works in relationships, right? If I am a young guy, I go to a party, I see a beautiful woman across the room, and I want to go and talk to her, right? And we can relate with this, or maybe it's vice versa. It's a woman going and seeing a guy that she finds attractive. Um, if my self talk has been, oh, she's not going to like me, I'm ugly, I'm no good, what do I have to offer? I'm not even going to go talk to her. Or if I do go
Yeah.
talk to her, what's that conversation going to be? It's going to be like that. Well, this same thing happens in business. The same thing happens in investing. The same thing happens when we approach money, is that we self-sabotage. We don't realize we have these self-sabotaging behaviors. So the biggest thing, if I want to grow my wealth, I've got to grow the ability that I feel that I'm worthy of it. I'll give you one example real quick.
Yeah, please.
I've been sharing, like, I've been reading this book. There's a book called 10x is easier than 2x, and it's
Yeah.
about if you want to 10x your life, you want to go there. I'm actually having Ben Hardy on my show coming up here soon,
I was to
and
say
if you want
same author as Who Not How. So you're onto
yeah,
something.
exactly, exactly. I love those guys; they're amazing. But if you want to be a 10x, I mean, 10x amount of sales, you just take the number amount, your net worth, whatever it is, then you're gonna have to become a different person. It's actually a whole nother person if you want to get there. And so for me, I've been speaking this over myself. Like, what does this 10x person look like? Right? Who's making this amount of money? Who's doing this? I'm visualizing it. I'm seeing it. Napoleon Hill says, spend 30 minutes a day thinking about the person you intend to become. Right? So a lot of time spent. Who is this person? In order to do that, you've got to actually become that different person. And so, how does that actually happen, right? How does somebody actually get from here to there? Well, for me, I've been visualizing this, and then a deal came along that's kind of outside of our wheelhouse. It's more in the private equity space, and it basically it's a pretty large. I would say it's a huge deal, but for the amount of cash flow it does, it's huge. It's going to about 4 or 5x the revenue and the profit in our business almost overnight. I was
Wow.
like, well, how did this happen? Right? We're hoping to close this week, next week. How did that happen? Well, it happened because I've been creating this in front of me, and I still almost missed it because I just was like, well, this is not really what we do, whatever. But then I was able to see it because I've been creating this out in front of me. So because I created it, I was able, oh, this actually is it. And I was able to, like, I am this person. This is the person that I am. So we don't make this connection. We just think of all these things are out here and that's for other people and billionaires and whatever. It's like, well, no, like it's for us. Well, if we create ourselves, we see ourselves in that, then when the opportunity comes around, we're ready to walk forward in it. And people look at you like, oh, how'd you do that? It was like, well, I kind of created it before it happened. Right. That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate you sharing that. Where can people go get a copy of that book?
So the of the new book.
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So the new book is not out yet. I've written it completely, almost completely, and then I realized I was taking on a little too much. It's basically a series. So I've got Rich Brain, more about mindset. I've got Rich Habits that I'm going to be creating, and then Rich Networks. And so they're different things, but I want to really make sure I do a good job on Rich Brain and making sure that it says the one thing rather than many things. So
Sure, sure.
hopefully later this year it'll be out.
Sweet, sweet. So be on the lookout for Rich Brain, and then also go pick up a copy of Bronson's first book, Fire Yourself. That's just all about creating passive income, which is something that he's been able to really figure out in his life. So, Bronson, thanks so much for taking the time to come on the show. If you're listening, the Mailbox Money Show, go check out some of the episodes that they're putting out over there. Inquire about maybe some of the multifamily projects they have going on. See how you can get involved with people like this that are doing big things in the world. Bronson, thanks so much for taking the time to do this. Everybody else listening, remember, money will only solve your money problems, but it's a little bit easier to solve the rest of your problems if you got some money in the bank. So let's solve that problem first here on the Travis Makes Money podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time. Peace out.